Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Football House on House Enterprise. I'm Sam Basil, joined finally by a full Football House crew for Week 5 of the 2025 season. Yeah, let's clap it up. Let's get some claps up real quick.
Whole squad's back.
No, welcome back to the show. Hope your wedding was fantastic, amazing, and better than our picks have been so far this season. So before we get into it, Week 5, how you feeling?
Honored to be back. Missed you guys dearly. The chat was always doing great. I watched it, in Newport, in St. Vincent, back in Rhode Island. I was watching the streams, tweeting them out. The picks weren't so great, but yes, I was the asshole that got married first 2 weeks of college football season. However, there's no better weekend to miss than this one, and you don't want to miss this weekend. So I'm glad I'm back because my ass is on the couch all day Saturday. There's a lot of great games, and hopefully we pick them right.
Yes, a great that you got married in the beginning of the season because, like I'm sure everyone has seen the tweets that have been reposted over and over again. If you have a wedding this weekend and you got anything going on this Saturday, cancel those plans. I don't care if you're the best man. I don't care if you're the maid of honor. I don't care if you're the DJ. You have a lot of football to watch. And before we get into some of the games this weekend, I kind of want to set the stage for where we're at heading into Week 5. Starting off with our top 25. Not a lot of movement this week, obviously, as a lot of the top teams were on byes. As you can see, our top 7 actually remain completely intact. All the teams that did play in that grouping, kind of just performed exactly as expected. The only big movement that we saw was a big dip from Illinois and a decent rise from Indiana as the Hoosiers took down the Illini 63-10. Guys, what happened there? Where did Illinois slip up? And where can Indiana use this to vault themselves into a playoff position? Because, look, they're not there yet. They're 13th right now. They can get there, but they're just outside that picture.
Yeah, I think the difference in that game was Indiana's quarterback, right? Fernando Mendoza looked really good. There's been a lot of talk actually this week about him and the NFL draft, him potentially, moving up the board, being one of the top quarterbacks selected, come April. So, look, Indiana had a great year last year. Kurt Cignetti has done a great job with that program, and they really embarrassed Illinois. So, we'll see how they do as they move on in the Big Ten this year, but they're definitely a team to watch for.
Yeah, absolutely. And then let's get into our standings heading into Week 5. And guys, oh God. Oh, don't look. Not for I should have put a NSFW tag on this because it is looking not safe for clean eyes here. Cole, you had a pretty solid week though. You went 18-16. Tondo, you're just ready to crack 500. I have really fallen by the wayside. I'm at 12-17. And Jake, you've clearly been listening to a lot of Salt and Pepper because you are pushing it real good. 3 pushes total on the season, 2 last week. So, the floor is yours, Jake. What is it like to be, the epitome of, I guess the saltine cracker of college football pick. Not great, not bad, just kind of it's there.
Just there for the ride. I'm trying to think what I pushed on. I definitely did not push on Illinois plus 6.5. It was probably Oklahoma -7 over Auburn. I think it was Mizzou -9 over South Carolina. Man, is this my sign to just stay away from the SEC unless I want to push? Or does this mean I should just take the safe route and take the SEC in hopes I can eventually come over this? Do I have SEC on my card this week? I do. So I clearly have not learned my lesson. I will keep going that route. I'm going to be super frustrated, not to spoil some of my card, if my Missouri -43 over UMass pushes. I'm going to be very pissed about that. That is just an exorbitant spread. I'd rather have UMass win. honestly, than like Mizzou win by 42. So.
Absolutely. And before we get into our cards, I did want to explain a unique caveat of this week's show. Like we said, this is a stacked card for week 5. It's going to be probably the most important weekend of the college football regular season. A lot of teams are going to be jockeying for playoff position. And there are way too many games for us to confidently pick one game of the week. So on our cards, we each picked our own game of the week out of 4 that we selected as the top 4. So we're each going to be breaking down one, why we think it should be game of the week, and obviously our picks. So just a rule for you guys here. If someone else's game of the week is on your card, give your pick for it. Just wait to get into too much detail on it. So without further ado, let's get into it. Tondo, we're going to start off with your card. A pretty solid week last week. You really hit USC, Michigan State pretty well. You did pretty good in the Big Ten overall. Bryant, not too
barn burner, man. Barn burner on the overtime. That was 50-48 was the final.
It was a double OT. It's just a crapshoot when those games go to overtime. That's the thing.
I know. And then Mississippi State covering the 21.5, great. But I don't know why I do this, because I'm the biggest advocate for don't touch double-digit spreads. And what did I do this week? Purdue and Oregon both missing it by the hair on your nuts. Like crazy. And then Utah just dropping at playing in Salt Lake City and losing that game. I mean, Texas Tech, legit team. Obviously, we're going to see what the future looks like, with injuries and stuff. But that was a disappointment. I'm ready to bounce back. And I like my card, I think.
So let's get into your week 5 card and let's break it down for us. Give us your regular picks, your locks, and then before you give your actual pick for the game, even though we could see it right there, explain why Illinois versus USC is your game of the week.
Yeah, so there was a lot of games. I mean, hand up, my game of the week probably would have been Penn State versus Oregon, but we had some folks beat me to it, and that's okay. I'm a team player, and but I do like Penn State on this. I truly think that they are deserving of that top 2 spot. I can't wait for the Ohio State, Penn State matchup in the future. But, I do like them, winning by 3.5 on this one. Heading into the rest of my picks, I have Syracuse plus 5.5 versus Duke. Obviously, the headline of the weekend is Steve Angeli tearing his Achilles, out for the season. I'm drawing a blank on the name of the backup. Can someone help me with that real quick?
That's a good question. I don't even know who they're back.
I had it in my notes and it's deleted. Either way, he came in after the injury and performed fine. I think Syracuse is just a strong team all it out. I think they, the 5.5 is plenty of breathing room against Duke. Duke has a strong passing attack, but those yards can probably rack up pretty quickly on the other side of the ball. I think their defense has shown some flashes of competitiveness, but I think this is an opportunity to showcase why Syracuse deserves to be in the top 25 as well. So I do think they cover. I think, although Duke is a clean team, they'll probably win that game. I think it will be fairly close. Heading into my next pick, which I believe Zimmer has, I like Louisville -3. Consistent team this year. I think Pitt is also just historically bad on the road. So we'll see what happens there. I think the line is pretty modest at 3. Next, we're going to head to Ohio State and Washington, which is that someone else's game of the week as well? Nope. All right. So I'll dive. I think, again, it is Big Ten. Obviously, there's other matchups that are, pretty impressive throughout the board, but Washington still is a strong team this year. Julian Sains threw, again, it's against Ohio last week, but 350 yards, you can't really, shy away from that. He does have a pretty talented, team around him as well. On the flip side, Washington does counter well in the backfield with Jonah Coleman, who has 10 touchdowns on the season. I think Ohio State just wins straight up. I think the offense is super potent, and I think Sain's going to deliver. Yes, it is a road game, but there's got to be a reason why Ohio State stays number 1, and it's obviously winning on the road. Heading into Georgia, Alabama, the modern SEC rivalry. I know someone has this as, obviously their game of the week. I'm not super impressed with Gunnar Stockton just yet, but I do think he has, potential, and just I'm not sold on Alabama as a whole. So I'm just going to take Georgia as the outright winner. Next matchup is Mississippi State plus 7.5 versus Tennessee. Tennessee is obviously a strong SEC team, but Mississippi State is playing pretty explosive, and they're playing, they're keeping the tempo under control. I think 7.5 is a pretty big cushion. Tennessee might dominate the time of possession and also just, impose their will on defense. But I do think that, Mississippi State can keep it close. So I like them covering. My FBS lock of the week, we briefly touched upon, Fernando Mendoza and his, great matchup last week. I like Indiana winning by 3.5 versus Iowa. This one's probably going to bite me, but Bryant Moneyline versus Towson. I don't know why I'm just obsessed with the Bulldogs, not only because it's majority of our alma mater and they have a new field house, but I'm just going to ride with the Bulldogs on this one. And then my game of the week is Illinois versus USC. Why I think this is a game of the week is also because it's not the flashiest out of them all. I think these are two playoff contention teams that do have the opportunity to, really make some damage, whether it be in the first or second round matchup. USC is just loaded on their offense. I think, between Jaden Maeva and Mackay Lemon, they're having just standout years. This is just going to be a really good conference matchup. Illinois, obviously, they need to aim to prove why they belong here. They've already, had some obviously moments throughout the season, but I do believe that 6.5 is a good score, especially within this conference, to cover. But I like USC just winning outright. So prediction on this one, I'm going to say USC 31, Illinois 24. Keep it within the touchdown, and USC wins out.
Love that. Wait, USC 31, Illinois 24? Because in that case, Illinois wouldn't
30,
cover
30.
30.
30. Miss a field goal somewhere.
There we go.
Yeah.
Half-point covers get tough.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of tight half-point covers this year. One question I had about your card. I am very intrigued by the Mississippi State plus 7.5 versus Tennessee. Tennessee obviously lost to Georgia in a 44-41 barn burner. Put up a lot of points, gave up a lot of points. Do you think that Mississippi State can stop Tennessee's offense, or do you feel like they can kind of match the pace here in a marathon shootout game?
I think their offense is going to create some big plays. I think that's what holds them on to this 7.5. I mean, obviously Tennessee just has a quicker tempo. They're very explosive on the run as well. If they do not fall behind too early on, I think this is going to be a close game heading into the fourth quarter that Tennessee just has to pop out and win.
Yeah, absolutely. USC, also just one question on your game of the week. USC slowly climbing their way up through the top 25. Should they come away with a win? Are they creeping into the playoff picture for you?
I think the case is there, but they'll obviously have to take on one of their bigger foes the rest of the season. So looking at their schedule, I mean, next week you have Michigan, which is probably it's Michigan, Notre Dame, USC.
Yeah.
Or no, sorry, Michigan, Notre Dame, Nebraska, which obviously Nebraska is unfortunate for Matt Rule and, Mahomes 2.0, but still obviously a game you have to win. And then you close out with Oregon followed by UCLA. Mm-hmm. You win this week against Illinois, you're in the conversation. You beat Michigan next week, you're a playoff team.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and let's get into Cole's card. Cole, you had a fine week. Tough time in the Big Ten. Hey, look, it's a winning record. You got a winning record. So tough time in the SEC, and that Utah versus Texas Tech game that just really just destroyed all of us. But in week 5, you're rocking with a smaller card. I like that. Keep it tight, keep it focused. What do you like around the country this week?
Yeah, I was way off with Utah and Illinois last week, so hopefully I can bounce back this week. But my regular picks this week, I got East Carolina 4.5 versus Army. Look, these teams have played each other 9 times in their history. Army's 1-8 in those matchups all time against ECU. So the Pirates have dominated Army head-to-head over the history. Last year they played each other and Army got the victory, their first win ever against ECU, 45-28. I think ECU is going to be out for revenge, right? There's probably a lot of guys that are returning that played in that game. They're going to want to win that game, win this game this year. So, that's a factor. ECU's head coach, Blake Harrell, I think he's done a great job there. He took over halfway through the year last year after they fired their coach. And, as the interim last year, he finished out the season 5-1, which is really good. They gave him the full-time job, after the year. They're 2-2 this year to start ECU, but their 2 losses, they played NC State. They kept it close. They only lost by, I think, a touchdown to NC State. And then, last week they played a tough BYU team, and they lost by multiple touchdowns, but it could have been way worse for them. So I think the keys to the game here for the Pirates, you got to stop the triple option that Army runs, which is, difficult to do, but they're kind of one-dimensional. If you can take away the run, then they're not going to put up a lot of points. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I think you have to take advantage of Army's defense that's been pretty lackluster this year. So, I think if they can score points on offense, take away the run, I think they can cover 4.5. Florida State, Virginia, 2 teams that have been popping off this year in the ACC. Florida State, we've seen what they've done. They beat Bama a couple weeks ago, have really bounced back since last year when they had really tough year. Thomas Castellanos has been great at quarterback for them. They're the number 1 offense in the entire country right now. I think they're averaging over 600 yards per game. They've been great on third down. They're second in all of the nation in third down completion percentage. So, moving the chains, which is big on offense. They've been able to run the ball as well. Number 2 in the nation in rushing yards. They're averaging 363 yards per game on the ground. But look, Virginia is also capable of putting up a lot of points too. They're 3-0 at home this year. So I think this might be a shootout. I think there might be a lot of points. But I just think Florida State overpowers Virginia. I think their offense is more electric. They're going to be able to put up more points. So I like them to cover by a touchdown. UCF, Kansas State. Kind of surprised here that the Wildcats are such a big favorite. I know that they're at home, but they've been extremely disappointing this year. They started the year out week 0 in Ireland against Iowa State. They lost that game. They lost to Army, who's also been struggling, which was, kind of a surprise, and then lost to Arizona, who's been doing well in the Big 12. Their only win again is against North Dakota FCS team, and they only won that game by 3 points. So Kansas State's been struggling. On the other side, you have UCF. They're averaging almost 40 points a game. They looked really good last week against Bill Belichick and the UNC Tar Heels. So I think this is the first real test for the UCF Knights. And look, Manhattan, Kansas, going into Bill Snyder Stadium is not an easy place to start, Big 12 conference play. It's going to be tough for them, but I think they keep it close. They might not win against Kansas State, even though I wouldn't be surprised if they did, but I do think they keep it close. And look, Scott Frost, we've talked a lot about him on this program, over the last couple of years. You got to remember, he was at UCF before he went to Nebraska, his alma mater. Really struggled at Nebraska, but when he was at UCF the first time, he was unbelievable. He had that undefeated season where they claimed they were national championship champions, which is, ludicrous. But, he's won his last 16 games as head coach at UCF, 13-0 his last season there. And then they're 3-0 this year. So, I think he's trying to prove a point. I think he's comfortable at UCF. I think they're a tough team. So I think they're going to make it difficult on Kansas State. So taking UCF. Tennessee, Mississippi State. I know Tondo's going plus 7.5 for Mississippi State. I'm going the other way. Look, Mississippi State, they've looked good. Their offense has been performing pretty well over the last couple of weeks. They're 4-0, but they haven't really played anyone. They did beat Arizona State, which was an impressive win for them. But other than that, they've kind of played nobodies. And the reason they beat Arizona State in that game was Arizona State really didn't throw the ball. They were trying to ground and pound, and Mississippi State's defense was able to hold on and beat them. Tennessee is not going to do that, right? They're all about airing it out, moving quick, fast tempo. They just have one of those electric offenses. And Joey Aguilar, their quarterback, he's been unbelievable. He's tied for third in the country in passing touchdowns. Chris Brazell is their leading receiver. He's got 6 receiving touchdowns already on the year. He leads the country in that category. So, I just think this is going to come down to Mississippi State up front on the defensive line. I don't think that they have enough pressure to get to Tennessee. And I think Tennessee's offense is just too explosive. So I think it will be a closer game, but I do like Tennessee to cover by 7.5 on the road. So taking the balls there. BYU, Colorado. Look, BYU, their defense is unbelievable. They're the second defense, I think, ranked in the country right now. Over their first 3 games this year, they've only let up 1 touchdown, which is crazy. So they've been really good on defense. Caden Salter, Coach Prime made him the quarterback at Colorado, named him the starter. He looked good last week against Wyoming, but I think the Cougars this week are going to cause him fits. I think they're going to give him a lot of pressure, and he's going to have to scramble around a ton. So, and then on offense for BYU, LJ Martin, their running back, he's already rushed for 100 yards in each of their 3 games this year, and is averaging 8.6 yards per carry. So I expect that to continue, and I think BYU covers by touchdown as well. And then my locks, FCS, UC Davis. I just like them because they're at home here. They've looked good in FCS play. They did lose to Washington by like 60 points, but that's kind of expected. Other than that, they've looked good otherwise. Weber's coming in on a 2-game winning streak. But look, UC Davis last year, 7-1 in the Big Sky Conference, 6-1 at home. I think that continues, and I think they kind of set the tone for conference play this year. So I'm taking them money line. And then Vandy, Utah State. I love what Vandy's been doing this year. They've really been a surprise in the SEC. They're 4-0 against the spread. They have a winning margin at home of 45.5 on average. Their quarterback, Diego Paiva, he's looked really good. He's completing the ball at like 74%. So, extremely accurate, doing well, finding his receivers. And Utah State's letting up 380 yards per game on defense. So I just think that Vandy's going to be too much for them, and will kind of be a blowout this week. Game of the week, Ole Miss, LSU. I feel like a lot of people are talking about Bama, Georgia in the SEC, but this one's kind of flying under the radar. I mean, LSU is the 4th-ranked team in the country. Ole Miss right now is, I think, the leader in the SEC when it comes to standings, another undefeated team. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. I think the spread is like 1.5. I'll get more into who I'm going to pick and why as we talk about game of the weeks. But I think this one's kind of flying under the radar, but is a huge matchup and is going to have a lasting impact on SEC moving forward. So.
Yeah, great card. I would like to say, I can't believe you would just diss the Collie Matrix like that, ragging on UCF's claimed 2017 national champion. I'm a Collie Matrix fan, but one thing that jumped out to me, UC Davis. I think this is the second time you've picked them this year.
Yeah, it is.
they missed, they missed being tied for the Big Sky Championship by a game last year. Do you feel like they're a serious contender for the Big Sky? I mean, if you look at the standings right now, I mean, no one has played a game in conference, but Montana and Northern Arizona are also looking very good. Do you feel like they could challenge either of those two teams, two heavy hitters in the Big Sky over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I do. I think, Montana's always up there, right? They're always, towards the top of the Big Sky Conference. But I think UC Davis is capable of making a push this year, especially how they did last year. And they've looked pretty good. So we'll see, how they do this first week in Big Sky Conference play. But I think they're going to be towards the top once we get to the end of the year.
And Ole Miss, LSU, obviously, it looks like you got the Rebs with the money line. Brian Kelly, for better or worse, has kind of been one of the main characters in college football since his, the start of his tenure at LSU. And we talk about, obviously, the expectations and how this year really feels like, something's cooking here. Is this how important is this test? I mean, because Ole Miss is really firing at all cylinders as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a game that they got to win. I mean, they got to go on the road, right? And Ole Miss has been pretty impressive on the offensive side of the ball this year. I mean, like Austin Simmons, their starting quarterback, went down, right? He hasn't played the last couple of weeks. And Trinidad Chambliss, their backup, I mean, he hasn't missed a beat, right? He's been doing pretty well. But Ole Miss has been in some close games where they've been lucky to win this year. So I think it's going to be another tight one. But as for LSU, I mean, they brought in Brian Kelly to win national championships, right? And be one of the top teams in the SEC. And he hasn't been able to do that thus far. I think them coming out, beating Clemson. I mean, Clemson's been awful this year, and we weren't expecting them to have the year that they've been having. But, you win that week one matchup, which has been big because LSU hasn't been able to do that. And now this is their next test, right? So can they get past Ole Miss? And then now if they do that, then, they got plenty more tough matchups in the SEC that they're going to have later this year. So, I think it is a must win for LSU, but I don't know. I like Ole Miss in this one.
Can I offer not that you argued for this, but so we talk about Clemson. Clemson obviously is not the team that we thought they were going to be this year, but I think to still give kudos to Brian Kelly and the LSU, just the program, even though it doesn't look as good as on the resume as it did right when it happened, like the stakes going into that game were still there, right? The test was still there, and then they did pass that test. So for you, I mean, is this kind of the same feeling going into this game that you felt going into the Clemson game?
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at it too. That LSU, when they played Clemson, they're still playing at Clemson, right? It was still
playing for Death Valley, right?
Yeah, it was still a big road win, regardless of whether Clemson's going to be terrible this year or not. It's still not an easy place to play, but Ole Miss isn't an easy place to play either, right? So if they go on the road again and get a win this week, I think that helps them significantly. It shows the committee that they're willing to travel, play these big times. I mean, they don't have an option with Ole Miss because it's conference play, but they're going on the road and getting it done. So I think that helps their case significantly. But, I think, again, it's a must win because their schedule, if you look at it, they still have Vanderbilt, they still have A&M, Alabama, and Oklahoma on their schedule, right? So a lot of tough games coming up, and the Bama game and the Oklahoma game are on the road. So if you lose here, then you're in a tough scenario for the rest of the year. You pretty much are going to have to win out or, maybe potentially lose one more game, but it's going to be tough on them. So I do think it is a must win for the Tigers.
Yeah. Crazy world we're living in, right? That, you talk about tough games coming up and Vanderbilt is in that sentence. But great card, Cole. Jake, let's get into yours. And like I said, you're pushing it real good. You hit the nail on the head with the two games that you pushed. Oklahoma -7 versus Auburn, Missouri -9 versus South Carolina. SEC, tough, easy? we don't know. But let's get into your card for this week. Break it down for us, and then give us, your game of the week.
I'd love to. TCU up first. This was interesting. At plus 2.5, I weighed out Arizona State for a bit, but I think, look, I would even consider TCU money line on Friday night because they have looked like a good squad for these first couple of weeks here. I think when Josh Hoover decided to come back, I had kind of had it in my mind that TCU could be pretty competitive this year, and I think it's pretty consensus that he looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I would say top 5 at least right now. So, this is. TCU's offense has also been really potent in my eyes. And the Arizona State defense is ranked 96th in success rate this year. So I guess just the general thought on Arizona State is a little bit to be desired here. It seems like Kenny Dillingham's offense is kind of still looking for what makes them click. Like I don't see – I don't know what their identity is, honestly, Arizona State's offense right now. So yeah, it seems to just be super one-dimensional. They've got Jordan Tyson, who's kind of like the one guy. I think TCU writings on the wall here. Josh Hoover seems like a guy that'll carve this defense apart. I don't know. I like TCU here. Mizzou minus 43. I know Tondo's cringing because he doesn't like the big spreads here, but look, UMass is simply one of the worst football teams at both the FBS and FCS level in the nation. I'm just going to say it here. I hope the UMass Army comes after me for this. I really do. We can have a nice long debate about what's going on over there. They're getting outscored 116-43 this year, guys, right? And it's like, okay, sure, it's early in the year, whatever. When it's not okay is when you realize the 3 teams they've played. Temple, Bryant, and Iowa. Those are teams that are not known for like these high caliber offenses. In fact, like, okay, Temple and Bryant, you look at and say, okay, there's no excuses for that. Iowa's one you look at and go, whatever, right? But it's Iowa, right? Like they have a notorious reputation for hitting the under in like all of their games. So that's not ideal. You combine that with I love what Mizzou's doing, right? It's a shame. I actually am just betting this because I think UMass sucks, but also Mizzou's having a really good year so far. I think, they could make a run for this middle of the road in the SEC. We'll see what happens, but this is just I am completely comfortable with this 43, this minus 43 spread. And you can.
How does UMass always put? Sorry, Zim. I was going to say.
I was going to say you can put me on the quote table with the thing like I am completely comfortable with this, and then have UMass like winning the game. But whatever. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say like how does UMass always pull these big names like halfway through the season? I feel like they're always playing an SEC team in like October. But also on the flip side, how the hell are we allowing SEC teams to play UMass heading into October?
Yeah, they're the MAC, man.
It's an easy win for them, so that's why.
Yeah,
crazy.
True. Wait, they also played Mizzou. Oh my God, they had Mizzou at home last year, and they lost 45-3.
I was going to say, is it a home and home or something?
Oh, 42 points. No,
It's 42 points, and then you go on they're on the road now. So if they do that in Hadley, then they're going to get their ass kicked out there.
Yeah.
Now I'm concerned. Uh-oh.
Jake, you're just asking to get put on the graphic now, though.
Yeah,
I know. Oh my God.
That's a tough one.
I think Mizzou's going to win 50-0. Whatever. Louisville -3 against Pitt. I not much to dive into. Tondo did this already. I've said this before. I say it with more confidence now. I'm concerned about Pat Narduzzi's status, fellas. And we talked about this a few weeks ago, but the backyard brawl, they took an L. That was a tough one. This is where I think it starts to fall apart for Pitt here. I have it on some good authority that there's a movement to get him out of there, led by boosters, led by alumni, this kind of stuff. They are. I thought the situation was less tumultuous than it is right now. People are starting to get pissed, and I don't really blame them.
I mean, that's a good point that you make, Jake, right? Because talking about like coaches being on the hot seat, right? We've already had 3 coaches fired, right? In college football this year. Deshaun Foster's out at UCLA, Brent Pry at Virginia Tech, and then this week, Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State, right? So, and I was actually thinking about this earlier today. Like, I think you're going to start seeing coaches get fired earlier in the year, like especially like more now than ever because of the transfer portal. I think that's going to be a big factor. So, if teams aren't living up to expectations or they've been struggling, I think they're going to get rid of them early on instead of like in the past, they've let them, play through midway through the year or waited until the end of the season to fire their coach. I think you're going to start seeing a lot more coaches, get canned earlier in the year so that it doesn't impact recruiting.
Well, it's so crazy with all these buyouts, though.
I know.
It's like,
it's true.
I mean, I don't think Mike Gundy's was too big. I'm trying to pull it out. I think it was like 15 million. So it's like, okay, it's not as bad as some of these like $60 million ones you're seeing, but it's like you are firing these coaches on the books for 15. You're not competing in the Big 12. And now you have to pretty much restart your recruiting.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's tough.
And look, I like Pat Narduzzi. I think he's been a good coach for Pitt over the years, but I think like you look at their track record, the last few, they have all the resources. They have all the NIL. They have a great facility. It's in a fantastic sports town. Yeah, I think there's stuff going on at the school because like their basketball team should be really good too. But they're just not.
We've talked too. Pitt last year, I think they started 7-0, right? And then they lost.
And then they went 0-6.
Yeah. So, I mean, if they're doing that and then this year they're just, shitting the bed again, then yeah, I could see them easily getting canned.
I mean, where do you draw the line, right? I mean, their best year recently was 11-3 in 2021, and you could now, with the benefit of hindsight, make the argument that was all Kenny Pickett, right? And so who knows? But I like Pat Narduzzi. He's done a great job. He's a New England man. He was born and raised in Connecticut. He coached at URI. Like, this is a guy that, he has every reason to be likable if his team just wins, and they haven't. And I don't know. I think people are getting frustrated with them.
Can I ask, do you think the expanded playoff? I mean, I think the number one answer, you guys hit the nail on the head. The number one answer for why you're seeing the coaching carousel start earlier is the transfer portal. But can I ask, do you feel like the expanded playoff is doing that too? Because the bar is lower now. I'm not saying that in a bad way, but the bar is lower to get into the playoff, especially with, the Power 4 top 5 conference auto bids, right? So it's like if you're not seeing a path to the playoff early on, where else are we going to see it, right?
Well, yeah, and especially like in the ACC, right? You have Miami, who is a powerhouse in the ACC, but other than that, Florida State's been good, right? Clemson's having a bad year. So other than Miami, Pitt should be one of those teams that's contending within the ACC potentially for that second spot to potentially play Miami in an ACC championship, and they're not. And I think that they should be, right? So, I definitely think that that's a factor as well.
Yeah, on paper, I feel like almost Louisville is what Pitt should be right now, right? Louisville has they've strung together a real couple good years. They've had a really good offensive attack the last couple seasons. I like their running back depth, right? It sounds like they're going to be a couple question marks maybe on who's playing, but I also think defensively, Louisville's looked a little better as the year's gone on. I've ranked Louisville every week pretty much, and I'm standing by it. I think Louisville with a win could, they have no excuse to not be in the top 25 this week. So I'm all Louisville here, -3.
Yeah, and you want to talk on the flip side of coaches. Jeff Brom has done a great job at Louisville. He could be
definitely.
He could be up for a bigger job in the near future, right? If Louisville,
I think he should go coach at Pitt.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I leave Louisville for Pitt.
No, you shouldn't leave Louisville for Pitt.
But, if a job opens up in the Big Ten or the SEC, Jeff Brom might be on that list.
Or even a higher end ACC job, I could see him.
Or Big 12, right?
Taking. Yeah, sure. Any of the like middle of the road Power 5 teams, Jeff Brom puts together another 9 or 10 win season. I mean, he immediately shoots up to the top of those lists. You know what? Maybe Oklahoma State. Screw it. They've got no reason not to hire a guy like him. Like that's another school that has a lot of resources. They love that football team. Who knows if he wants it though, right? It's going to be tough to recruit guys with the current state of the Big 12. But
and he went to Louisville, so it's a little different when you're coaching.
Yeah. Of course. So I'm just speculating there. I do have it on. I stand by my sources on what's going on at Pitt right now. I think we will have to monitor that as the situation unfolds. But yeah, I think this is all Louisville here. Just perfect storm of stuff. All right, I'm going to keep rolling on my card here. Ohio State -8.5. I think Washington impresses me, right? This is less of an indictment on Washington and more of a coronation of Ohio State. I think Washington's been explosive on offense so far. They get a lot of chunk plays, is my understanding. So it could get interesting if Julian Sand falters early, or maybe they give up a couple bad. Maybe the Ohio State defense gives like a couple bad chunk plays or whatever. But I think Sand looks like he's come into his own here, right? Like that's Ohio State's impression for me. I think their running game, which was obviously not there in week 1 against Texas, I think it's settling in. I think it's ripping off some big games. Now it just feels like they're turning a corner here, right? And Ohio State, they're going to go into Washington. They're going to play against a tough crowd, right? But they do this every week, right? This is not a factor for them. So I think this is all signs of a close game at the beginning, and then Ohio State pulling away here. So that's my logic for 8.5 there.
Yep.
For Cal, Boston College, I'm taking the dogs in Chestnut Hill. And look, I think this is much closer than the line would lead you to believe. I think the market just is overreacting to Cal getting blown out last week against San Diego State. I just haven't been impressed with BC so far, other than, sorry, Basil, their 66-10 win over Fordham. That was pretty impressive. But looking at the BC's game plan here, it looks like they've got 2 starters out on the D side potentially. They've got a O-lineman and a linebacker playing banged up. It's hard to be kind of optimistic about what's going on in Chestnut Hill. They've also been fumbling a lot, so I think that is fixable in the long term. But they're still kind of going through it now. And Cal had a really good start to the season too. I can't overlook the upset win at Minnesota. I talked about how Minnesota was going to be, potentially a team to watch in the Big Ten. That kind of erased from my mind, after Cal beat them. So I think Cal could keep this easily within a 1-score game. That's the sentiment about Boston College this year. And then Notre Dame, I think they're a consensus favorite here. We had some questions about them earlier in the year, but the 56 points last week, I think, impressed me. It shows that they've still got a little juice. It's very encouraging, right? Against a team like Purdue, who's, they haven't been upper echelon Big Ten, but it's still a Big Ten team, right? I also think now they're scoring 24 points more than their opponents are allowing. I think also historically Notre Dame has been very strong against the spread on the road. And this total's pretty high. It's 64.5 last I checked. So this is a shootout. I think Notre Dame, this tilts Notre Dame maybe by, a score or 2 here. FBS lock of the week, man. Actually, let's do FCS first. I'll save the FBS for last. South Dakota State over Mercyhurst. Mercyhurst won their first game of their second D1 campaign, but I think the honeymoon's over, right? You got back-to-backs against the Big Sky, which we talked about, and then the Missouri Valley Blue Blood in South Dakota State. I think that's humbling a very new team to the D1 entry. South Dakota State has not lost this year, and I surely don't think that their first one will be Mercyhurst. They're still trying to find their footing. FBS, I'm taking North Texas this week. North Texas is legit, boys. We talked about how good Army was, and then North Texas beats Army, right? They're 45-38 last week. I think 2 scores doesn't do this justice, right? North Texas, if you didn't know, they have the biggest turnover margin in the league. They have 2 more of a turnover margin than their next person in that ranking. This is fresh off a South Alabama team that's been trending way down the other way. I think 1-2, 1-3. I firmly stand by this. North Texas goes into my top 25 this week if they cover. I love what they're putting together. They've got a great defense. but I think they're going to force quite a few turnovers against South Alabama this week. Okay, game of the week. Let's do it. Penn State over Oregon, -3.5. So this is obviously the rematch from last year's championships. Oregon gets out to a lead early and they win 45-37. This game was kind of all Oregon last year, if you guys remember. They kind of thwarted off a comeback from Penn State. But yeah, my assessment here is both offenses are humming right now. And I think Penn State gets the edge for 3 reasons. One is I honestly think Beaver Stadium is one of the best home field advantages in this sport, right? They get the whiteout game. It's one of the most hostile atmospheres in this sport, man. Like I really do think that's palpable. On the football side of it, I think they have the edge in the defense too. I think Penn State's defense is one of the best in terms of limiting the chunk plays, the explosive plays, and that's what Oregon kind of does, right? They get those big gains, they get the big passes, all that stuff. But Penn State has effectively shown they can eliminate that, right? They are highly ranked in surpassing yards per pass attempt. I think Penn State's got kind of the defensive matchup there. Their front has been really good. I think that causes some problems for Oregon's run game, even though they're pretty deep. So if you make Oregon one-dimensional, that kind of takes away their whole shtick. And then they become overly reliant on the passing and they get too predictable, right? This is probably also the best defense that Oregon faces this year. So that's not nothing to be, overlooked. And then on the offensive side, I think talk about one-dimensional offenses, that's not Penn State, right? I think for me, it's been a lot of depth, a lot of running back depth in that room. I like Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton, that kind of duo. They've been really solid. And that gives, when you have those 2 running backs, I think that frees up Drew Aller to kind of do his thing, right? He's had a good start to the year, right? It's not Heisman worthy right now, but obviously we're 3-4 weeks into the season. So laying the foundation for what I think can be a really solid campaign for him. He's pushing the 70% completion rate. He's making good passes. But the whole point is I think defensive edge, well-balanced offense, and they got that home field advantage, man. I think this is a perfect recipe for the Nittany Lions to come serve revenge a little bit to Oregon for what they did last year. I think they reaffirmed their dominance at home. I think James Franklin shuts a lot of people up with this game, at least for the interim. I can't speak for what happens after that when they start to play the other, upper echelon Big Ten teams. But yeah, this is Penn State to me.
Yeah, I love that. Love everything you said about that game. I think, not to put, shame on the other 3 of us. But I think if I had to pick one of the 4 games of the week that we're going to be talking about, if we all had to pick one together, I think it might have been this game because, the implications that this game has for the Big Ten is really important. Obviously, I think this is Oregon's first game in conference play. It's their second, but it's Penn State's conference opener. So, and in my opinion, Penn State, a little bit down the road, has the stronger in-conference schedule remaining after this game. So for them to have this one at home, and if they can if they can get the win, they are pulling a crucial victory out of Oregon's hands for the rest of the season to set them up both for the Big Ten title game and for the college football playoff at large.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm looking at their Oregon schedule here.
They both take a little bit of a dip, in my opinion. I wouldn't say that because Oregon next week has Indiana. That's tough.
Yeah.
But then they got Rutgers, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota. And then their next ranked opponent is USC. And that's their only other ranked opponent for the rest of the year besides Indiana.
But keep in mind they have a bye after this too, so yeah, that's interesting. If they lose that game, they have 2 weeks to dwell, or they have 2 weeks to fix stuff, depending on how you look at it.
Then Penn State plays UCLA, who's bad. Northwestern, not great. Iowa, whatever. But Iowa's 3-1. Sorry, no shade to Iowa. But then they've got Ohio State and Indiana in back-to-back weeks. And that Ohio State game is in Columbus. So that's a really crucial game for Penn State as well.
Can we talk about UCLA for a sec? What
I
the
mean,
hell?
I have them on my card, so we can talk about them.
Oh yeah, we'll do that. But man, Nico, what a crappy move that looks like for Nico in hindsight, man. That's horrible.
He just got the bag. It doesn't matter. He got his bag.
I do feel strongly that Penn State, Oregon could be I just think that's the best game of the weekend, truthfully.
We'll see.
Yeah, it's just so much on the line, right? I think that atmosphere is going to be electric. And this is kind of like where the new Big Ten, this just seems to, I don't know, this is shades of like, okay, it's finally there. It's no longer new, right? It's no longer shiny. It's just like, we're going to see stuff like this for the next decades to come, hopefully. So yeah, this is exciting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And then let's get into my card. Last week, let's not even talk about
That's
it.
bloody, man.
A lot of red, too much red. All right, my picks. Starting off, I've got Notre Dame -4 at Arkansas. This Arkansas defense is bad. They lost to Memphis 32-31. They've let up at least 30 points in 2 straight contests, lost to Ole Miss and Memphis. And if CJ Carr can just play a clean game and carry the momentum from Purdue, where he hit 223 yards to the air, 2 touchdowns, no picks, played a clean game, I think Notre Dame easily covers by 4 points here. I want to get into my lock of the week, piggybacking off of that, and talk about Memphis -13.5 versus Florida Atlantic. Talk about North Texas. Talk about Army. Let's talk about Memphis for a sec. They have a fantastic offense led by Sutton Smith on the ground, Brendan Lewis in the air. Brendan Lewis is solid as long as he can get the ball into his own receiver's hands. His TD to interception ratio is not the best, but when it's working, it's working. But Sutton Smith, 5 touchdowns in 4 games. I really like him against FAU. I'm going in the Pitt Louisville game. I'm actually picking Pitt +4.5 versus Louisville. Jake, I know that you had Louisville -3. I think if I saw this game at 3 points when I was looking at the spread, I would have probably taken Louisville as well. But since Pitt's got that extra 1.5, I think they can take advantage of the Isaac Brown and Duke Watson injuries. Some really tough times in Louisville's backfield. Miller Moss also has been sacked 6 times this season. And that's 6 times over the last 2 games, 3 times per game. Panthers, I think, could keep it close here. And then, obviously, Northwestern -6.5 versus UCLA. These teams just suck. And Nico, I understand, he's kind of the big focal point of this team. He took a lot of money to go to UCLA. But really, it's the defense that's killing UCLA. And so, a game in Chicago, I've got the Wildcats here.
I'll say, too, Northwestern, when they played Oregon a couple weeks ago, they ran the ball really well against that Oregon defense.
Yeah.
Oregon could
they
not.
looked all right.
Yeah, on the run. So, I think they have potential to, make big plays on the ground. And I think that they could easily embarrass UCLA here.
Yeah, my FCS lock, I already gave my FBS lock, which is Memphis -13.5. My FCS lock of the week is Bryant Moneyline versus Towson. I just need to win, man. I just want to go for the dogs. I usually, in this time slot, at this time of year, I usually pick Fordham to go against Holy Cross in the Ram Crusader Cup, because that's a game that's obviously very near and dear to me, very near and dear to the Basil family, as my sister is a Holy Cross alumni. Not that I don't think Fordham can do it, because both these teams enter this game in the Bronx at 0-4. I can't pick it anymore.
That's tough.
I always pick Fordham, and Fordham has not beaten Holy Cross since 2016. I was at the last game that Fordham has beaten Holy Cross. It was in 2016.
It's almost a decade, buddy.
Yeah, in Yankee Stadium. It was my freshman year at Fordham. That was 9 years ago, probably 70 pounds ago for me, a whole mustache ago. So, I think I just need to get some refresh the juices a little bit and stay away from picking it. But I will be in attendance for that game, and I'm very excited. Go Rams.
Wow.
My game
I'll tell you what, before you go, You guys just love Brian against Towson this week. Like it's, I don't know, not to say that I don't. I'm not taking a side here, but like Towson's a freaking blue blood, man. They're the CAA's pride and joy. And people forget they're a decade removed from the national championship. Like this is not, I don't know. It's just, I'm staying out of it. I'm calling the game, so there will be no bias in the booth, but Towson's freaking good. And Don Shinnick's son coaches the team. I don't know. But I think there are several others you guys could have picked. I'll put it that way.
Home game, weather's right, students are alive. You had a barn burner last week, new field house. Go Dogs.
I know. I was going to say the new field house alone maybe just knocks them up a couple points. But
Bryant finally has like a competitive football team.
I do think they have their best running back room in several years. I'll meet you there. And they got a good quarterback. The sophomore kid looks like freaking Joe Montana. He's really good.
Yeah. All right. My game of the week, I'm going with another set of dogs. Georgia -3 versus Alabama. Some interesting background on this game. This is the first time since 2015, talking about, decade spans, the first time since 2015 that one of these teams has entered this game outside the top 10 or even the top 5. So in 2015, we had number 12 Alabama winning against number 8 Georgia. In 2023, the last time at least one of the teams was out of the top 5 was number 8 Alabama over number 1 Georgia in the SEC championship game in 2023. I feel like this game has always set the tone for the rest of the SEC going forward. Georgia has always, in at least in this decade since 2020, has come into it really hot, and Alabama has stopped them in their tracks. Alabama has won 9 of the last 10 matchups between these two schools, and that's going all the way back to 2008. Georgia's only win in that span was the 2022 national championship game. That being said, this game is in Athens. It's Kirby Smart's program versus still developing Kalen DeBoer in Alabama. Ty Simpson is heating up. After 55 QBR against FSU, he's posted 99 and 89 against ULM in Wisconsin. Georgia has only sacked quarterbacks so far 4 times this season. They gave up 41 points to Tennessee. However, Stockton is cool, composed, and has a wide range of targets at his disposal. Give me the dogs -3 at home. I'm calling this card this week double dogs.
I'll tell you what, Basil, if Bama loses this game this week, they're going to be in trouble because after this week, they got Vandy, Missouri, Tennessee. 3 in a row after that. And then later on in the year, LSU and Oklahoma back-to-back.
Yeah, this has been a tough time for Alabama, just talking about rankings. I mean, this has been one of their lowest dips since we've been doing our rankings, and they're at risk of possibly falling out of the top 25 if they can't sustain themselves in this really tough stretch.
Yeah, and look, Alabama last year 9-4, not up to their standard at all, right? Kalen DeBoer got a lot of heat, coming in there his first year, and just not performing of what the expectations are for there at Tuscaloosa. So if they have another bad year, he might be on the hot seat as well. They might just try to make a change and say, hey, this didn't work out, and start from scratch.
Can you blame them? We've talked a lot about Pitt's boosters breathing down their neck. Like this is multiply that by 70.
No, but I mean, it goes back to why did they hire him? Yes, he did great at Washington, but I feel like there were so many other better options that they could have hired. Whether it be Lane Kiffin or bring Dabo back to his alma mater. I just feel like there were a lot more coaches there that out there that they could have gone with. And it's nothing against Kalen DeBoer. I mean, he did a great job at Washington, but he really had that 1 year where they go to the national championship. And that was it. I mean, so I don't know. I just feel like it was kind of an odd move to bring him in and him be the guy to replace Saban. And it doesn't seem like it's really working out.
Maybe it's still a little early, but maybe next week as we head into October, we end each week with a hot seat session, because there's a few names. I mean, we haven't obviously picked them because they've been abysmal, but it's worth the conversation of when is Bill Belichick on the hot seat. Mark Stoops in Kentucky, his name's obviously been thrown out there. You know, you need to have a strong time in the conference. Hate to say it, but Luke Fickell over at Wisconsin, is that era coming to an end? I think he is just someone where it's like once the dominoes fall, they're going to clear him out. Maybe that's the end of the season. Maybe that's before Big Ten championship. I don't know. But Wisconsin, that's a team that just needs to be playing better, but they never are. There's a few names out there where it's like, when are these coaches getting the axe? So maybe we'll do a hot seat next week.
Yeah,
There's a lot.
There's some coaches too that have saved their jobs this year, I think, in my opinion, like Lincoln Riley at USC. I mean, last couple of years he's been there ever since he left Oklahoma to go to USC and got paid. He hasn't really done much at USC, and they're starting great this year. So I think he's kind of started to save his job a little bit. But yeah, it's interesting. And talking about coaches and your picks, Basil, Memphis, Ryan Silverfield, he's another one that I would put in the up and coming coaches. He's done a great job the last couple of years there at Memphis, and he could be another younger guy name that could move into a bigger program, I think, down the road too.
I guess just like offhand before this segment next week, potentially, or as we get in there, I think Billy Napier's got to be on that list, right? Like, when does Florida get a little antsy about what's going on there? And like, I think Dave Aranda's a guy we talked about at the beginning of the year. I think Baylor's been fine, so he's cooled off a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, just right off the dome, like when the hell does Florida decide, hey, we've had enough? And would a place like Florida have been good for Kalen DeBoer to go if he had left Washington first? Is that a better fit with lower expectations? I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I could, give my own little preview on my thoughts next week, I don't think Bill Belichick's anywhere close to the hot seat yet.
No,
I don't think so. I think you give that guy a long leash.
They save too much money, and even if I think directionally you're right, Tondo. It's like, yeah, the guy's been a fucking disaster there. Pardon my French, but already but they've set too much money and too much marketing into this guy that they're not, even if they did feel that way, it's going to be another year at least.
The way the contract was set up, they were hoping after all of the negative press and weird press in the beginning that someone was going to scoop him in the NFL. They gave him an out where they were going to pay him to take a NFL job. I think the writing's on the wall that it's like, if you are not a top 4 team in the ACC by the end of the year, you're packing.
Well, I do think this. I think
he has not played a single game in the ACC yet,
which is scary.
Yeah,
that's the scary part.
And look, I'd say if an NFL team after this year offered Belichick a job, he's going back to the NFL in a heartbeat. There's no doubt. But because of how he's coached at UNC and how they've looked, I don't know if that call's ever going to come.
I don't know if he goes back to the NFL. It's got to be.
You don't think if the Cleveland or some other crappy team that's going to can their coach calls him up, you don't think he would say yes?
The New York Giants?
Fuck no.
Oh fuck no. I think he would do it.
Fuck no. He's I mean, no. He's not.
You don't think he would take the Giants job if they parted with Daboll?
I don't.
And
think
if they called him,
dude, that's where he was the DC. Baby. He's got history there.
He's got history, but he's going to be wanting to call too many of the shots. So and his track record in New England with draft picks wasn't phenomenal.
Yeah,
in the later half of his career.
Tell me, we haven't had a fucking receiver in the last 5 years.
All I know is Cole Strange would have been a fantastic lineman in the Tar Heel Blue. He would have been a fantastic pick 10 years ago.
Well, guess we'll never know that one either.
But hot seat next week, maybe.
I think Brian Kelly, if LSU doesn't make the playoffs this year, I think he's on the hot seat.
Another one.
We talked
about that. We talked about that last year with the expanded playoffs of like, what is the turning point for some of these programs like, Franklin over at Penn State? Like, is it, okay, you're, consensus top 4 team the entire season, knock on wood, we'll see how the rest of the year goes. You make the championship, but you lose. Is your job safe?
I mean, you guys got to remember too, people were calling for Ryan Day's job as like last year.
Yeah.
And then, they lost to Michigan last year again, and everyone was losing their mind. And then they just went on an absolute run and, ended up winning the national championship. But that saved his job. Like before that, like if Ohio State didn't make the run that they did, he could have been gone too, If
I may offer a league-to-league comparison, it's like the people that said Nick Sirianni and Sean McDermott would be fired last year,
It's crazy.
Which
It's
would I, at the beginning of the year, had thought like it would Sirianni potentially be on the hot seat? Maybe. I don't know, depending on how their year went, but obviously that's no longer the case. So
NFL teams, you get a 3-year window most of the time. Majority of the time, you're getting a 2 to 3 year window of like, hey, you're inheriting some shit, go from there. The problem with college is your roster's turning over now so frequently, whether it be they departing for the NFL or they're leaving your team for NIL, that it's like, can you rebuild fast and efficient to make the playoffs is the question.
Yeah, I think that you're spot on, because I think that's a big reason why FSU didn't fire Norvell last year, right? I mean, 2 years ago they're undefeated. Last year they go 2-10, I think, and FSU stood by them, and now look what they've done. They've brought in all these transfers, and they're back in the picture. So
and again, now the way that recruiting's happening, you're now just getting in bidding wars where it's like, oh shit, we do need to fill the quarterback position. We do need to fill the wide receiver position. It might not be the position that fits your team, but it's the fear of missing out of, oh shit, like this guy is asking for $2 million. That's in our budget. That's how much we have allocated for. Let's do it. Like you see that over with obviously the UCLA quarterback. He's sniffing around after leaving Tennessee, Nico, to see how much is going. And all right, yeah, UCL paid a bag, but now they're like, the return on investment's not there.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do?
Absolutely. So aside from our cards next week, coaching hot seat, let's do it. With that, I think that'll wrap it up for another episode of the Football House Show. It's great to have a full crew back. Welcome back again, Tondo. Make sure you follow us at all the socials that you see down below. If you are listening to the audio-only version of this podcast, they will be linked in the description. And for more football coverage, make sure you head over to house-enterprise.com. We've got so much great stuff cooking for you on the blog, in college, in the NFL. College basketball is on the way. We've got so much great stuff coming for you in that world. And we'll still be here with the Football House. So for Cole Hughes, Jake Zimmer, Will Tondo, I'm Sam Basil. This has been the Football House Show, and we'll see you guys next time.